A handsome prince, pretending to be a poor village farmer, was dragged from the royal seed line and accused of carrying a forged copper token. His shirt was faded, his hands were rough with field dust, and Councilman Varro called him a beggar with a hoe. But beneath the dirt stood Prince Kalen, searching for a wife with a true heart. Mara stepped forward anyway. Before Mara reached his side, the first thing Kalen did was bend down. A small stream of millet seed had spilled when one guard knocked a sack against the table.
The seeds scattered across the dry ground, rolling between sandals and cracked heels. No one moved. In Mavira, after months without rain, even one handful of seed could decide whether a family planted or begged. Kale set down his old cloth bag and picked up the seeds one by one. "Leave them," Councilman Varro and Duca said. Kale kept his voice low. "They are still seed." Villagers lined up outside the royal seed warehouse with bowls, baskets, and folded sacks. The green seal of Ilaro marked the door. To the village, it meant survival. To Varro, it seemed to mean power.
A lifted Kale's copper token with 2 fingers. It was round and dark from age, marked with a faint lion and a sprouting stem. To most eyes, it looked like a poor man's charm. "This is not a village token," Varro announced. "It is not on my list, and this stranger is not from any registered farm in Mavira." Kale rose, with a few seeds still in his palm. "Uncle Toma registered me under his field. The clerk wrote my name 2 days ago." At the ledger table, Binta Soro tightened her grip on her reed pen. The ledger lay open before her, full of names, portions, and field marks. Her eyes moved to the copper token, then quickly back to the page. Varro noticed. "Binta," he said, "is this man in the ledger?" Her voice was barely steady. "There is a Kale under Uncle Toma's field, sir." "A name can be written by mistake," Varro said. "A forged token cannot be forgiven." The line went quiet. Hunger had taught these people how to stay silent. A wrong word could cut a family's portion in half. Varro did not need to raise his voice. The sacks behind him spoke loudly enough. Near the neem tree, Uncle Toma watched with both hands on his walking stick. His face stayed calm, but his knuckles tightened. He looked at Kale once and gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. Kale placed the recovered seeds on the table. "If the token is questioned, let him be checked. I can wait." "You can wait outside the gate." Varro held the token higher. "Royal seed is for farmers with land, history, and proof.
Not for strangers who arrive with mud on their feet and stories in their mouths." Mara Ekon stepped out of the line. She had been standing 3 places behind Kale with a narrow basket. Her own token was tied to the handle with faded blue thread. Her skirt was patched, her arms sun-darkened from the village seed garden. But her eyes were steady. "Mara," an older woman whispered, "don't." Mara walked until she stood beside Kale. She looked first at the seeds on the table, not at him. "If you call a man a thief in front of the village," she said, "he should be allowed to answer before we all repeat your words." A murmur passed through the yard and died quickly. Varro turned slowly. "The seed girl wants to teach the council now?" "No," Mara said. "I want the council to follow its own rule." His smile thinned. "Your little garden survives because this committee allows it." "My garden survives because widows and old farmers still need seed when your table sends them away." Several people lowered their faces. Binta stopped writing. Varro's voice grew soft.
Careful, Mara. A dry season is a bad time to lose friends. Kale looked at her then. She did not know who he was. She knew nothing of the palace, the crown, or the mother pushing him toward a powerful bride. To Mara, he was only a poor stranger with a question token. And still, she stayed. She bent, picked up the last few seeds near his foot, and placed them with the others. These were sent for planting, she said, not for stepping on. Varro gave a short laugh.
Then plant your own portion if you are so generous. He signaled to Binta. Mara Akon, 1/2 measure. Binta looked up. Sir, her household is listed for a full measure and garden reserve. 1/2, Varro repeated. Binta wrote it down, but her hand shook enough to leave an ink blot beside Mara's name. Mara accepted the 1/2 measure. Then she turned and poured part of it into the cloth bowl of the widow behind Kale, an old woman whose hands trembled from heat and worry. The widow stared at her.
Child, you need this. So do you, Mara said. Kale felt a quiet ache in his chest. In the palace, many women had praised kindness in polished rooms where kindness cost nothing. Here, kindness took seed from your own basket. Varro watched with cold eyes. If you like standing beside strange, poor men, Mara, prepare yourself. By next moon, that seed garden of yours may not be on the committee list at all. Mara lifted her basket. Then the village will know what kind of list it is. For the first time, Varro's smile disappeared.
Kale picked up his cloth bag and hoe. The guards did not return his portion, but they stepped aside. As he passed the ledger table, he took back the copper token and tied the worn cord under his shirt again. Binta kept her head down until Varro turned to call the next former. Then her eyes flicked toward the place where the token had been. Her face showed no surprise, only fear. Outside the gate, Mara walked ahead with her half-filled basket. Kale followed quietly. Uncle Toma remained under the neem tree, watching the warehouse like a man who knew the danger had only begun. Behind the table, Binta reached to turn the ledger page. Under the table leg, a torn strip of blue thread stitching clung to a small piece of seed sack tag. She glanced at Varro. He was busy with the next name. Binta picked up the tag, closed her fingers around it, and slipped it into her sleeve. The next morning, Uncle Toma gave Kale the worst part of the field. It lay beyond the old mango stump, where the soil had cracked into hard plates and the irrigation ridge had broken in 2 places. Kale stood over it with a hoe in his hands, feeling yesterday's blisters open again. Uncle Toma noticed, but he did not pity him. If you came to understand farmers, the old man said, do not begin by asking the soil to be gentle. Kale pushed the hoe into the earth. The ground resisted. In the palace, men bowed before he reached a doorway. Here, even dirt made him earn every inch. By mid-morning, sweat had darkened his faded shirt. He patched the ridge with clay and carried water from a shallow well. Most of it spilled before he reached the beds, but he kept walking. Uncle Toma leaned on his stick near the field line. You learn fast for a man whose hands are still arguing with the hoe. Kale looked up carefully. Is that what my hands say? They say one thing, Toma answered. Your eyes say another. Before Kale could reply, Mara arrived with palm fronds and a tray of young seedlings. She had tied her hair back with the same faded blue thread that held her token yesterday. Her basket was lighter than it should have been. You should not have given away part of your measure, Kale said. Mara knelt beside clay cups filled with sprouting millet. A seed kept from a hungry widow does not become harvest. It becomes shame. Behind Uncle Toma's field stood the community seed garden. It was small, but every corner had a purpose. Millet for widows, beans for old farmers, pumpkin for families whose wells had failed. Kale watched her work. She did not speak of kindness as an idea. She organized it, watered it, and protected it from goats, heat, and men like Varro. He crouched near the broken channel. Why is the main ditch dry? The upper gate should feed this side of the village. Mara's hand paused over a seedling. Uncle Toma looked away. After a moment, Mara said, "The council says the old ditch collapsed because my father measured it badly." "And you believe that?" "I believe a dead man cannot defend his own work." She pressed soil around the seedling. "My father built half the water paths in Mavira. When the upper gate failed, Varro blamed him before the mud had even dried. After that, people stopped asking questions." Kale turned the words over quietly. A failed water gate, a blamed engineer, a seed committee that punished questions. The lie was taking shape. Hoofbeats came from the path. Varro Unduka's cart rolled beside the garden. 2 full seed sacks sat in the back, covered loosely with cloth. Beside Varro sat Celine Unduka, his niece, dressed in a cream wrapper too bright for a field. Celine looked at Mara's patched skirt, then at Kale's muddy feet. "So it is true. You lost half your portion yesterday and gained a stray farmer." Mara did not stand. "Good morning, Celine." Celine's eyes moved over Kale as if he were a stain on the path. "He is handsome enough, I suppose, under all that dirt. But hunger can make bad choices look romantic." Kale kept his face still. Varro climbed down from the cart. "Mara, your garden is not a private kingdom. It remains open because the relief committee allows it. It remains open because people need seed after your table sends them away," Mara said. His smile was calm enough to frighten. "Then do not give the committee reasons to reconsider." As Varro spoke, Kale's eyes moved to the cart. One covered sack had a torn corner. A blue thread tag dangled from it, cut halfway through. The stitching matched the strip Binta had hidden yesterday. But the sacks behind Varro were not marked for public distribution. Their paint had been scraped, as if someone had tried to remove the lot number. Kale stepped closer, pretending to lift a fallen palm frond from the path. Celine snapped, "Do not touch my uncle's cart." "I was clearing the wheel," Kale said. "A poor man who touches what is not his always has a reason." Mara rose. He did not touch the sacks. Varro's gaze moved between them. "You defend him quickly." "I defend what I saw." "No," Celine said. "You defend what you hope he is. But a man with empty hands cannot fill your future." The words landed hard. Kale saw it, and he saw that Mara did not look at him to be rescued. Varro covered the sacks more tightly. "Keep your garden neat, Mara. Messy places attract accusations." He climbed back into the cart, and the mule pulled them toward the storehouse road. When the dust settled, a small strip of blue thread tag lay near the wheel mark. Mara picked it up before the wind could take it. At the edge of the garden, Binta appeared between 2 cassava shrubs, breathing hard. Her eyes went first to the road, then to Mara's closed fist. "Mara," she whispered. "I cannot stay." "What is wrong?" Mara asked. Binta shook her head. "Keep every tag you find." "Binta—" But the young clerk had already turned away, one hand pressed to her sleeve. Mara opened her palm. The tag was small, but the ink had not fully faded. A string of numbers crossed the cloth, ending in 47B. Her own half measure from yesterday carried a different mark, 31A. The sacks were supposed to come from the same royal relief lot. Kale reached for the tag, then stopped and let her decide. Mara handed it to him. He studied the number longer than a poor farmer should have known how to study it. He remembered a sealed complaint sent months ago to the palace, one that mentioned missing seed from lot 47B, before the letter disappeared from the lower council file. Mara watched his face change. You have seen that number before. Kale folded the tag carefully and gave it back. I have seen enough to know you should keep it dry. That is not an answer. No, he said softly, but it is the safest truth I can give you today. For the first time, doubt entered her eyes. Not doubt that he was innocent, but doubt that she knew the man she had defended. That night, after the village fires burned low, Varro unlocked the royal seed warehouse. No villagers stood in line. Only one guard waited beside the table. Varro dragged a fresh sack from the inner stack and set it in the darkest corner of the storehouse. The blue thread tag hung clean and bright from its mouth. He pointed toward Uncle Toma's fields beyond the road. Before sunrise, Varro said, the poor farmer will be the thief. Before sunrise, the village bell struck 3 hard notes. Mara sat up before the 4th one came. The blue thread tag Mara had found the day before was wrapped in dry cloth beneath her sleeping mat. Then the 4th bell rang, sharper than the others. From the royal seed warehouse, a guard shouted, "Seed is missing! 1 whole relief sack is gone!" By the time Mara reached the yard, people were already gathering in half-tied headscarves and dust-covered sandals. Mothers held empty bowls against their sides. Old farmers leaned on sticks. No one asked too loudly what had happened. Councilmen Varro and Duca stood on the warehouse step with the ledger tucked under one arm. Celine waited beside him, dressed too neatly for dawn. Binta stood behind the ledger table with both hands pressed flat to the wood. Kale arrived from Uncle Toma's path with clay on his trouser cuffs. Uncle Toma followed with his walking stick. Varro pointed before the whispers could choose their own target. "There he is," he said. "The stranger who came yesterday with a false token. The man who asked too many questions about our ledger. The poor farmer who looked at royal seed as if poverty gave him the right to take it." Kale stopped at the edge of the yard. He did not step back. He did not raise his voice. "What exactly is missing?" he asked. "A thief does not question the keeper of the storehouse," Varro said. "A thief would not ask in front of everyone." The answer unsettled a few faces, but hunger was stronger than doubt. A guard stepped forward. "We found 1 royal relief sack near Uncle Toma's lower field, half hidden under old palm mats." The crowd shifted. It was not a shout. It was worse. People deciding whether fear mattered more than fairness. 2 men carried the sack into the yard and dropped it near the ledger table. The royal green paint marked its side. Around the mouth, a blue thread tag hung bright and clean. Too clean for a sack supposedly dragged through dry weeds before dawn. Mara's hand closed around the folded cloth hidden in her pocket. Varro looked straight at her. "You see, Mara, this is what happens when good people defend strangers before they know what kind of men they are." Kale stepped closer to the sack. "Open the ledger." Varro lifted his chin. "You are in no place to give instructions." "Then read the serial number aloud," Kale said. "Let Binta compare it with the recorded lot." Binta's fingers tightened against the table. Her eyes moved to the tag, then to Varro's face, then quickly down again. Varro did not open the ledger. Celine gave a small laugh. Yesterday he was begging for seed.
Today he speaks like an inspector. I am speaking like a farmer whose name has been accused, Kale said.
No, Varro answered. You are speaking like a man who thought mud would hide ambition. Mara moved before fear could stop her. She stepped between the sack and the table, close enough to see the blue thread. The tag on the planted sack had a small nick near the knot, exactly where a torn tag could have been switched. Her throat tightened. If seed was stolen, she said, the tag and the ledger should prove it.
Let them be checked. Varro's gaze sharpened. You already lost half your measure for insolence. Do you want to lose the garden too? The words reached beyond her. Several widows near the back looked at one another. Mara's seed garden was not only hers. Widows and old farmers saved their next planting there. Celine stepped closer, voice soft enough to sound clean. Your father ruined one water channel. Must you ruin the seed garden too? Mara's face changed, but only for a second. My father is not here to answer your lie, she said.
But I am here to answer this one. Varro placed the ledger on the table and tapped the cover with 2 fingers. Then sign a witness line. Say you saw this man near the storehouse road last night. I will consider the matter closed. Your garden remains open. Your name remains clean. And if I refuse? Then the garden is sealed for supporting a thief, Varro said. No seed reserve, no canal access, no committee protection. The crowd pulled back from her without moving their feet. Mara felt their fear press against her shoulders.
She also felt the folded tag in her pocket, small as a thorn. Kale looked at her. Mara, he said quietly, you do not have to carry this. She turned on him, hurt cutting through her courage. Do not make my choice smaller so it costs less. He lowered his eyes. Mara faced Varro again. Her voice trembled once, then held. If royal seed needs a lie to protect it, then it was stolen before Kale ever touched a sack. Binta made a sound so soft, only the table seemed to hear it. Varro turned toward her. Did you say something? Binta's lips parted. For one breath, Mara thought the truth would finally come out. Then Varro opened the ledger just enough for Binta to see one page, not enough for anyone else. His thumb rested over a line near the middle. Binta's face went pale. No, sir, she whispered. Varro shut the ledger. There. Even the clerk has nothing to add. Kale watched the way Varro hid the page. The truth was not only in the sack. It was in the numbers Varro would not let anyone read.
Uncle Toma stood at the edge of the yard, still as an old fence post. Kale reached into his shirt and brought out the copper token. For the crowd, it looked like a nervous man clutching a charm. For Uncle Toma, it was a signal. Kale rubbed his thumb once across the lion and the sprouting stem. Then he turned the stem toward the eastern road. Uncle Toma's eyes narrowed. He tapped his stick twice and stepped back through the line of villagers. Varro did not notice. He was already giving orders. Hold him in the storage shed until a palace representative arrives, Varro said. Let the royal seed office see what kind of men come asking for royal seed now. 2 guards moved toward Kale. They did not strike him. They did not need to. Kale gave Mara one last look before they led him away. She wanted him to say why he knew too much about serial numbers, why his token made Uncle Toma move, and why he looked more ashamed than afraid. Instead, he only looked sorry. By nightfall, the storage shed sat behind the warehouse like a box for unwanted things. A guard slept near the door.
Mara stood beyond the fence with the folded blue thread tag in her fist. "Kale," she whispered. Inside, he moved closer to the slats. "You should not be here. That is what everyone keeps telling me." He did not answer. She swallowed. "Who are you really?" The pause stretched. "I am still the man you defended," Kale said. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. "That is what frightens me."
A good man should not need this many secrets. She turned away before he could answer. At the far edge of Mavira, a horse stopped without a royal flag. The rider wore a plain travel cloak, but the sealed pouch at his side bore the same lion and sprouting stem as Kale's copper token. Royal Inspector Dalen Orris looked toward the dark warehouse and walked into the village. By morning, Varro had turned the meeting yard into a courtroom without calling it one. The accused sack of royal seed lay beside the ledger table, its green paint bright against the red dust. Villagers gathered in small, frightened groups. They did not all believe Varro, but seed and water still passed through his hands. Mara stood near the back with the folded blue thread tag hidden in her palm. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kale behind the shed slats, saying he was still the man she defended. She believed him. That was what made the secret hurt. Varro opened the ledger and lifted his voice. "People of Mavira, royal seed is for honest farmers, not wandering men with fake tokens. Today, we send this thief to the royal seed office with our full statement." The guards brought Kale out. His shirt carried straw from the shed floor, but his eyes were steady. Uncle Toma watched from beside an empty grain cart, his walking stick planted in the dirt. Before Varro could read another line, a calm voice crossed the yard. "No statement leaves this village until the warehouse, the ledger, and the tag numbers are examined." Royal Inspector Dalen Orris stepped forward. His travel cloak was plain, but the sealed pouch at his side carried the lion and sprouting stem. Varro forced a smile. "Inspector Orris, you came quickly." "I was requested." "By whom?" Dalen placed Kale's copper token on the table. "By the authority attached to this." Varro laughed once. "That trinket? Inspector, the man fooled you." Dalen opened the sealed pouch, removed a stamped copper strip wrapped in red cloth, and set it beside the token. The same lion, the same sprouting stem, the same tiny notch at the root. "This is a royal seed token," Dalen said. "It grants audit authority over any relief warehouse in the drought districts." The first thing that changed was not the crowd's opinion. It was their posture. People who had leaned away from Kale now looked at the token again. Dalen turned to Binta. "Bring the ledger." Varro put a hand on the book. "My clerk is nervous." "Then she may answer slowly." Binta opened the ledger. Her fingers shook. Dalen asked, "Is this the original ledger you wrote?" Binta looked once at Mara. Mara opened her hand just enough for the blue thread to show. "No, sir," Binta whispered. Then her voice steadied. "This is not the first list I recorded. Some names were removed. Some sacks were marked damaged after they had already reached the storehouse." Varro rose. "Careful, girl." Dalen kept his eyes on Binta. "Careful with the truth, not with fear." Mara stepped forward and placed the tag on the table. Varro pointed at it. "That could have come from anywhere." Dalen took a serial list from his pouch and read the number aloud. Then he found the matching line, This lot was reported damaged in transit, he said. Yet 3 sacks from this same lot were logged yesterday behind the private grain room assigned to Councilman Varro and Duca. The yard tightened around the words. A widow near the front lowered her empty bowl as if it had suddenly become evidence, too. Varro turned on Kale. He planted that tag. He knew exactly what it meant. No, Uncle Toma said. It was the first word he had spoken to the whole yard. He walked forward slowly, but no one mistook his age for weakness. I watched him last night, Toma said, from moonrise until the guards came.
He was in my lower field, mending a broken ridge where water should run when the canal opens. Varro scoffed. And why should anyone believe an old farmer who shelters him? Dalen answered before Toma could. Because Toma Rue was palace soil keeper for 22 years. His reports trained half the irrigation officers in this district. Toma looked at Varro. You called the lower fields useless because you needed them quiet. A quiet field cannot complain when water is diverted. For the first time, Varro looked toward the canal road. Binta stepped closer to Dalen. There is more, Varro snapped. Enough! Dalen raised one hand, and the guards near Kayla shifted their attention to Varro. Binta clasped her hands together. Councilman Varro told me to add witness names that were not present. He told me to mark the missing sack beside Uncle Toma's field before the guard brought it in. And yesterday, when he lifted Kayla's copper token in front of the line, he told me not to record its mark. Varro's anger outran his caution. I never examined that token. A murmur moved through the crowd. Too many people had watched him hold it up with his own hand. Dalen set the serial list beside the token. The evidence is clear. The token is real. The ledger was altered. The tag belongs to a falsely reported lot. The timeline clears the accused. The clerk has testified to false entries. Only then did he turn to Kale. Dalen bowed his head. Prince Kalen Aruvo, on behalf of the Royal Seed Office, I apologize for the delay. The title moved through the yard like wind through dry cane. Prince. Mara felt the word land between them.
She had defended a poor farmer, and a prince had been standing inside him all along. Kalen did not smile. He did not lift his chin for the village to admire him. This is not about proving a poor farmer can secretly be a prince, he said. It is about proving a poor farmer should have been heard before he was condemned. Varro sank back into his chair. Dalen faced the crowd. Councilman Varro Unduka is suspended from the Seed Committee pending a full royal audit. This warehouse is sealed under palace authority. No sack leaves, no page changes, and no family is removed from the list until the review is complete. A few villagers turned toward Kalen with apology in their faces. Kalen lifted one hand gently. Start with the people whose names were crossed out, he said. Mara placed the blue thread tag into his palm. Now everyone sees you, she said quietly. I need to know whether you ever saw me. Kalen looked down at the tag, then at the copper token beside it. The reveal had saved his name. It had opened the warehouse and broken Varro's hold on the crowd, but it had not saved the trust of the woman he had truly come to find. The first thing Prince Kalen did after the warehouse was secured under palace guard was step away from the center of the yard. He did not climb the steps and make Maviro look up at him. He did not ask anyone to cheer because Varro had fallen. He turned to Royal Inspector Dalen and said, "Open the ledger again. Start with every name crossed out." The warehouse doors opened again under palace guard. Inside, sacks of royal seed stood in neat stacks, higher than the village had imagined. A sound moved through the crowd. Not joy yet, recognition. The hunger in Mavira had not come only from drought. Some of it had been locked behind Varro's door. Kalen looked at Mara. "Will you check the list with Binta?" Mara's eyes still carried the hurt from the reveal. Kalen did not rush her. At last, she took the ledger and laid it flat on the table.
"Read the crossed-out names first," she told Binta. Binta's hands trembled, but her voice held. "Widow Amilo, 2 sacks withheld. The Iren children, 1 sack withheld. Farmer Saka's lower field, marked dry, but still planting." One by one, villagers stepped forward. Some spoke, some only nodded. Dalen wrote each correction on a clean page, and this time the list stayed where everyone could see it. When Binta finished, Kalen turned to her. "You will keep your post." Binta swallowed. Councilman Varro said no clerk who crossed him would work again. He no longer decides that. Dalen ordered Varro escorted to the palace court for investigation.
Varro did not shout this time. Without the ledger under his hand, he looked smaller. Celine stood near the road, her fine scarf pulled close, watching Mara as if the village girl had broken a rule no one had written down. By sunset, seed was placed into the hands of families who had been told to wait. Kalen carried sacks with Uncle Toma until dust covered his sleeves. No one bowed to him. He did not ask for it. The next morning, palace engineers arrived at the old canal.
Mara walked with them along the cracked bank, expecting another official report that would hide behind careful words. Instead, the chief engineer knelt beside the rusted lower gate and scraped mud from the stone marker. "This gate was never repaired after the last flood," he said. "Your father's warning was accurate." Mara went still. The engineer looked to Dalen. The repair money was approved. It never reached the canal. For a moment, Mara could not speak. Her father had died with half the village believing his negligence ruined the water line. Now the truth stood in dry mud under the morning sun. Kalen stayed a few steps behind her, close enough to hear, far enough not to claim the moment. "His name will be cleared in the palace record," he said. "Records matter," Mara answered. "But they did not sit with him when people crossed the road to avoid his shadow." "I know." "No," she said softly. "You are beginning to know." Queen Celia came 3 days later with 2 clerks and a small escort. She studied the public ledger board outside the warehouse, the farmers standing as witnesses, and Mara beside the seed table. "So you are the woman who refused my son, before you knew he was my son," the queen said. Mara held her gaze. "I refused a lie, Your Majesty, not a person." A few villagers lowered their eyes. Queen Celia did not. "What do you want from the crown?" Mara did not ask for silk, a palace room, or a title before her name. "A seed council," she said. "Not one man with a key. Farmers, widows, clerks, and canal workers. The ledger stays public. Distribution cannot happen unless the people who plant the fields can see the list." Queen Celia looked at Kalen, then back at Mara. "That is not a small request." "No," Mara said. "Small requests are how villages stay hungry." By the end of the week, the order was sealed. Kalen could have returned to the palace with his mother. Instead, he stayed in Mavira through the planting season. At dawn, he worked beside Uncle Toma in the lower fields. By noon, he helped lift stones along the canal.
In the evenings, he sat outside the warehouse while Binta copied the ledger onto the public board. He did not ask Mara to forgive him in front of the village. One evening, when the repaired canal carried its first clean ribbon of water, he found her kneeling by the bank, pressing young shoots into wet soil. "I am sorry," he said. Mara kept her hands in the earth. "For pretending to be poor? For letting you stand inside a secret that only protected me?" She looked up. "I wanted to know who would see me without a crown," he said.
But I forgot that a hidden crown still casts a shadow. You had to stand in it. The water moved quietly between them. "Trust is a seed," Mara said. "You cannot order it to grow because you are royal." "Then let me keep planting," Kalen said. Months later, the lower fields turned green. Mara's garden became the Mavira seed house, with clay jars lined along the wall and names written where every family could read them. Binta kept the ledger openly. Uncle Toma taught children how to test soil by touch. Mara's father's name was carved into the canal stone, not as blame, but as warning. Listen before hunger becomes silence. On the morning of the first harvest gathering, Kalen met Mara beside the water and held out the copper seed token. "I will not ask you to be buried under the throne," he said. "If you choose me, your voice comes with you. If you choose the seed house, I will still honor it." Mara took the token and looked toward the fields. "I saw you as a farmer when no one applauded," she said.
"And I saw you as a prince when you had power and did not crush the people beneath it." Then she placed the token in the seed house wall. The wedding, when it came, was spoken of simply. The village did not gather to kneel before a crown. They came with handfuls of seed and poured them into one large clay jar beside the canal. At dusk, Kalen and Mara pressed the first seeds of the next season into the dark, wet earth. Behind them, the canal kept running.
In the seed house, the copper token caught the last light. No longer a secret, no longer a test, but a promise that truth, like a seed, grows only where people have the courage to bring it into the open. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. And if you believe every person deserves dignity, no matter how they look, like this video, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs the reminder. This is an original fictional story created for entertainment and moral reflection.